I'm Roddy. I'm the Artist Programs Director here at the Fringe Festival. This is exciting. Welcome. I know Ellen Lowe's talked a little about the beginning of the Fringe journey, and I'm here to help that journey along as well. I mean, I'm going to be that person of contact helping you with any questions you have throughout it, either through like the support emails, or at office hours, or literally just whenever, really. Yeah, it's always really exciting to help to help all you artists. But to introduce, this is the Ensemble work at Fringe in the second stage of the Broadwater. Before I want to really get into it, I want to do a little bit of a land acknowledgement, because I know Ellen Lowe's did one, but we're splicing all these videos together, or separately, sorry. So the Hollywood Fringe acknowledges that we are in the unceded lands of the Gabrielinos, Tongva, and Chumash peoples. Our statement serves as a practice as we commit to furthering our connection to Indigenous communities past, present, and emerging. For more information, you can always check out the www.hollywoodfringe.org/land. We kind of break that down. Also, as you're enjoying your Fringe time and producing your show, it's going to be one of those things that you'll look to get the recording of, to hear at the top of every show, there will be a land acknowledgement done. And Hollywood Fringe provides one, but you can also create your own. But it's something important that we want to do. A little bit about myself, you already know, I'm Roddy. My pronouns are he, him. Visual description, I am wearing darker jeans, green dress shoes, pink corduroy button-up, curly hair, and glasses. I started my Fringe journey in 2023 as an artist service, not working it. I started as an artist doing a show here in 2023, an ensemble show, so I'm really excited actually about ensemble shows, and the panelists I'll introduce momentarily. Yeah, and then 2024 and 2025 I've been working with Fringe, helping the festival operate, which has been really exciting. Now, without further ado, I want to introduce our panelists. We'll start on the far end and come in closer. I won't spoil who you are, so please, if you could, your name, how you came at Fringe, preferred pronouns, and a visual description.
Yes. Hi, my name is Durell. My pronouns are he, him. I am African American male, wearing black jeans and a Bride of Chucky t-shirts, gray glasses, and curly hair. I'm here. What am I doing?
Oh, sure.
What am I doing? I'm on a panel. I started my journey in Fringe.
Yes.
Yeah. I started as an actor maybe 5 or 6 years ago. I did 2 Fringe festivals. Last year was my first Fringe as a producer. I brought a show that I wrote. It was a horror comedy called The Server Slasher Massacre, about a group of waiters who were being chased by a psycho in a mask. And it was bloody and big, and there was 10 people on stage, and it was fun, and now here I am.
Incredible. Thank you so much, Sean. If you want to carry it on over.
Sure. Hi, I'm Will Thomas McFadden. My pronouns are he, him. Visual description, I'm like a young Wilford Brimley. Robust mustache, the glasses of a serial killer from the 80s, curly hair, white guy, brown shirt from Old Navy, corduroy with little fishes on it, blue jeans, brown boots. And was that
and how did you come to, that's fantastic, how did you come to Fringe?
I did a Fringe show without knowing it was a Fringe show probably 10 years ago or so. And then the first time I actually produced and wrote a Fringe show was 2 Fringes ago. And that was a show, it was an ensemble show called What the Chuck, and it was a political satire. And it was nominated for Best Comedy. It was cool.
And then, can you say a little bit what you did this year?
Oh yeah, this year I did 2 Fringe shows. I co-created and performed in a clown show called Absolute Legends. That won Best Clown Show. And then I also directed a ensemble drama called Family Fries that was nominated for Best Drama.
Thank you so much, Will. And then if you want to take us home.
Sure. Hi, my name is Mandy Rubeli. My pronouns are she, they. I'm a white woman. I'm wearing a black surgical boot because I kick people. I'm wearing like washed jeans, an obnoxious green and yellow shirt that says Australia, and I have a black curly bob. And how I came to Fringe, I grew up going to the Las Vegas Fringe Festival, and I've been to Edinburgh. So I kind of grew up doing Fringes, and then I moved out to LA in 2022, and I was independently producing my work unknowingly through the Stagecrafts who do shows here. And they were like, hey, please bring this to Fringe. And I was like, oh, I didn't even know, okay. So then I came in 2023, so I've done Fringe for the past 3 years, and then what I've done is Fringe.
Yeah, yes, please.
Feels so silly saying it. I've done shows I've written. I've been nominated and won 9 awards, and I've been in 12 publications throughout LA. This past year I did a fun show called All Cats Go to Hell. It was a dark comedy about a group of kids who accidentally kill their neighbor's cat, and they're trying to figure out what to do, so they try and resurrect it. It was a crew of 10 people, so it was crazy, and there's fake blood. But yeah.
Fantastic.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you all. Yeah, it's gonna be exciting. For those of you just coming in, I think I wrote this out of order. Quick introduction to what this panel is about. This is an ensemble panel. All of these people have either directed and or written ensemble shows. We're gonna discuss what it goes into writing an ensemble show here at Fringe. Some of the unique things that kind of go into the process when you're like thinking about Fringe, or if you're not thinking about Fringe, because sometimes we're thinking of a show and we bring it, or we're like, no, this is just a show I have, and I'm coincidentally bringing it, you know? And the things that come along with that, and the advice that we're going to be hearing from our panelists today. So, I guess we'll start with this first question. Sometimes people come into the panels being like, oh, I have the concept for a show, and I may or may have not already written it. When did you start writing this year's shows? And I know for Will, yours was a duo collaboration. Mandy, you have a very unique process. And Rashawn, I'm going to start with you because I'm really curious about how this started.
I wrote this show 2 years ago. It was it was like a sci-fi show about a matchmaking company. And those were 2 things I had no clue about. But I just threw something into like a really rough first draft. And then I think one of the great things about ensemble work is the amount of people that are involved and collaborate. And so as soon as I had a draft, I just grabbed all my friends and we did a table read, and I just wanted to hear how it sounded and what I really thought I was doing and wasn't doing. And I asked for as much feedback as possible and realized that what I know, I'm a bartender, what I know is serving and slasher movies, and that aha moment that you have when you're writing is like, oh, okay, this works, this is an idea. And then I did 3 more table reads. I think table reads are like magic. They just unlock so much for you as a writer, especially if you're writing for a large group of people. And then probably October of 2024, the idea kind of clicked, and I sat down, I watched Halloween one night, and I was like, yeah, okay, let's do that. This works. And so I kind of finalized that maybe December-ish, and thought that maybe I should try to take this to Fringe.
Awesome. Yeah, it is. I'm kind of in the same wavelength where like I love this idea of doing as many readings as possible, because it does change the way the script is heard aloud.
Yeah.
You know, I've been in rooms where I'm like, oh, this sounds way different in my head.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh yeah. So anytime I can get like a table read, or even like a stage reading where like, let's do some on your feet work, it's so valuable. And Will, you have, speaking of the clown show though, I don't know if it was completely scripted, or can you talk about when that process started?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely scripted, and then there were chunks that would just say clown bits.
Okay,
Which
yeah.
was just like, we'll figure something out
Yeah.
during that. But that actually started because I went to Edinburgh last year, and my co-clown, my clown husband, Alan, and I both saw this one show while we were there that was called Night Night. Shout out Alan. And we loved it, and we were super inspired by it, and both independently saw it on different nights, and then came back and we were hanging out, and we were like, oh my god, Night Night was so great. it was Night's about King Arthur told through clown. And so we were both like, oh, what historical figure would you do a clown show about? And I was like, I was reading a book about Hercules, so I said Hercules. And he was like, I would do it about Yuri Gagarin. And I was like, who's that? And he was like, he's the first person to ever go to space. And I was like, oh, I should know that. And so we each were working on these kind of solo shows, and then we were like, what if we smush these together and make it into a two-person show? So it was an interesting process because we kind of went apart. We each wrote our 20-minute show, and then we came together and we read them, and we noticed there was a lot of similarities, similar bits, a lot of overlap, and then we just had to figure out what the kind of connective tissue was, which was very fun in figuring out those characters and how to kind of like what the delivery system is for telling these historical figure stories. So yeah, it was an unusual process. Usually one person, or even if you're writing in a partnership, usually you sit down and you write it together. But we went apart, we gave ourselves a deadline, we came back and we read and then figured the rest out.
Were you guys throughout that process like showing each other bits, or was there ever like a third audience like being like, oh, here's the thing, or you're like, nah, we got it?
No, when we were writing, we were like, okay, I'll see you in 2 weeks. And
Okay.
Like do your research, like learn about Hercules, and but then yeah, once we came together, we did bring in an outside eye, Ithamar, who kind of helped figure out some of those clown bits that we had. But yeah, no, and then I would watch also what Alan was doing and be like, oh, how do we make this more of a game, or how can we include the audience more in this? So yeah, it was very independent and then super collaborative once we brought it together.
I see. Because yeah, that's another part of it is like when you have a writing partner, you're not always attached to the hip. You're like, okay, we have different work schedules. We'll touch base when we need when we can.
Yeah, and also like, how can I support you? How can you support
Yeah.
me? So yeah, it was a beautiful work marriage.
Yeah. Oh, it's very much so. Mandy, you have a unique I feel like you have a unique process.
Roddy
to
thinks
this.
I'm crazy.
I think you're crazy, and you may or may not disagree, but you're gonna hear why right now. Can you explain with the exception of Arizona Rain, can you explain the past 2 years your Fringe process?
Yes. So the past 2 years, Fringe is in June. I decided to write something in April, and I'm fortunate enough to have a group of very loyal, very talented actor friends who will take any of my material and roll with it. But yeah, so I love working under pressure, so I've decided always in April, I book the venue before I've even started writing. So I know I have to do something. And then I'm like, all right, I have to write something. And then I tell my loyal actor friends, like, okay, I'll have something for you in like 3 weeks. And then I just like really buckle down. I do this like day in the life writer series, which I film myself on TikTok, and I'm like, here's like 1 out of 10 how well I did writing that day. So I just like peer pressure myself into writing. And then usually it's like end of April-ish. I get all my friends together, we do our read. I've cast everybody. And then everybody tears it to shreds basically, which is the greatest part about Fringe. So everyone tears it to shreds, and then we end up, I label everything as a workshop when I do Fringe. 2 reasons for that. One, because it's technically not the world premiere, so you can submit it to festivals as this is the premiere, which is a pretty cool life hack. And then second of all, that's why I like doing Fringe, because it's a built-in community meant for like constructive criticism, because every show that you go to, you're asked to write a review, and if you're in the community, like you're expected to write a review. And I'm always honest in my reviews, and I want people to be honest with my work. And I just like, how often do you get to do your show and there's a built-in community meant to lift you up, meant to critique your work. So that's why I really love this like crazy process, because then I'm like, yeah, here's like the freshest batch of like what I've got cooking up, and then everybody can tell me their opinions, and I'm like, okay, great, if I ever take this somewhere else, like here's kind of the spots where I can see where we need a little something extra. But anyways, yeah, so then they tear it to shreds like kind of end of April, and then we start rehearsing, but with the knowledge that things might change a little bit here and there, and then I usually get like a hard final draft by like a week and a half into May, and then I hope that our dates are a little later into June. But they usually start with June 5th. But it's been awesome. I mean, the last 2 years we've been nominated and won things, so It works, and it's never too late to start an idea.
That is so true, and it terrifies me as like just a writer person that I'm like, that's wild, but the pieces have been phenomenal.
Thank
And
you.
it's been a delight to see them. So I do remember that last year's Fringe, it was this documentation started, and I was like, what is going on? But like, there was a bunch of incoming Fringers that was like, oh, this is a person named Mandy, and I'm gonna see their process and their journey. And it was so exciting to see it happen. And then this year, correct me if I'm wrong, you were like doing it, and then there was a moment where it kind of stopped, and then you were like, I locked myself in a cabin for a week, and now I'm ready.
Yeah, because the show, well, this year was interesting because I booked the hour slot, and it also is like, it helped that my venue managers knew me the year before, so they knew that like, hey, I'm going to deliver, like I promised. But I had booked the hour slot, and I started writing, and I was like, oh no, this is over an hour. And then I was like, well, maybe I can cut it down, and then then I locked myself in this cabin because I like knew I really had to work it out. And then I was like, this is 90 minutes. Like, I don't know what to do about this. And luckily, you work with your venue managers because they're all super nice. Like, at least I work with the stagecrafts the entire time. I'm sure everybody's nice, but I'm like, they're super nice. And we somehow fit it into a 90-minute slot. But yeah, I did really buckle down this time because it was much longer than my other scripts.
I know this isn't a marketing panel, but like I think that's really smart because if you're journeying your process as you're making it, people are watching and going along that journey with you, then when they come to the show, they're going to feel like they're part of the creation of it. So that's super smart.
Yeah, I
Steal that.
oh, you jogged my memory about this with the 90 minutes, an hour. Like, so every venue is different at Fringe, and the way you book times is different. A lot of them do like, okay, you have an hour slot, or you can book a 90-minute slot. The data from last year with the annual report, which is released now, I think you can just look up Hollywood Fringe Annual Report 2025, and it'll pop up. But it says the average show was about 55 minutes to an hour. There are 90-minute shows. They just tend to be the outliers. I think there's like maybe 40 of them in a 400 show festival. But they're so much fun. But if you're booking a time, like as you're writing and you realize that, yeah, communication will be the name of the game with your venue. You know, when you book at Fringe, you are registering with the festival. The festival's like code of conduct, the registration fee, but then you're paying a venue fee and deciding with them how many shows you want, when those time slots are, and you, as long as you're like keeping up connection, or like talking about like, oh, there's gonna be a lot of blood, letting them know that as well. One other thing about that Mandy touched on is like the world premiere thing, because I know that like Fringe is a incubator for a lot of beginning work, and then it goes on. I would definitely check out when you're looking at like where your show will go next, the definition of world premiere. Because some theaters, just in my own research, have been like, oh, a world premiere only counts if it's in like an equity contract show, or they're like, oh, you're in an equity contract theater. Or some are like, no, like world premiere period. Like if you had a stage reading, it doesn't count, or if you had a production at a Fringe level, it doesn't count. Like everyone's different about it. Just giving heads up on that, because there is a toggle on the website that you can click world premiere, and that's how audiences can also find shows, where they're like, oh, I want to see new work. I don't want to see either pre-published work or work that's like made a couple rounds. I think there's like West Coast premiere, world premiere, and US premiere, I think, toggles on the website. Yeah, it's only that, right?
Galactic premiere.
Yeah. Yes. Going, because we just talked about the journey of this, and Rashawn, you talked about the editing process and this. I guess I want to go back to this thing of like, we kind of already talked about it. Maybe this question's new, but how many people are looking at your script before it makes it to the stage? Like, I know you like it's the stage reading thing, but like, how many people are we talking about, and how many ideas are you like, yes, I'll take those, and you're like, actually, I'm okay.
As many people as possible. There were, of course, things I didn't want like spoiled, I guess, like who's the killer, who's dying, whatever. But in that beginning process, there was like 10 people in the room, and then I sent it out to 3 or 4 other people, and I'm just like Mandy said, just tell me all that stuff. Like, tell me what you think didn't work. Tell me what you thought was amazing, because that was a show that was really I think relied on the audience's interactions and engagement, and I think when you're relying on things like, you know, scares and all that stuff, I really want to know what works and what doesn't, and you kind of have to marry that to your own gut instincts. I like to write what I like to see, and I think that's lends itself to genre, so I wasn't shy about just sending it to as many people that would read it, and people did. And I also overshot my length. I think I booked a 60-minute slot, and it was like an hour and 20, so I had to do some chopping. But also that also helps with the editing process of just send me notes, send me this character, that character, what plot twist did you guess the killer? Was I really smart about it? All those things really help. So I never shy away from sending it to people if they're ready to read it.
Nice. I think that's so brave. Because when I write something, I'm like, 5 people, that's all I need.
Yeah.
Because I'm just like, at a certain point, I'm like, very scared about this. But you're so right, like it does improve. It's also just a rewarding experience because people are just like reacting to it and genuinely, ideally enjoying it. You know?
I'm also very sensitive, so I need to like get past that block of like being very precious about my work and hearing the constructive criticism and not taking it as an insult. And so once I'm like past that, like I'm a terrible writer, like you hate my work, then it's like, okay, tell me constructively how can I make this better? So you kind of have to work against that. Yeah.
And I know that Will, Absolute Legends was a little bit different in the process, but What the Chuck was a collab. How was that experience?
Yeah, that one kind of similar, where I like didn't start until March. But I wrote that. So I wrote that last year in March, in an election year, and that play was a political satire set in 2027 in a Trump presidency, and it was about a department of the government called the U.S. Department of Drama, that their whole purpose was to review the works of living playwrights and then decide if they should be banned forever. And I was hoping it would be fiction. I was hoping it wouldn't come to fruition.
No.
And it's the lead character in it was named Robert James Ritchie, which is Kid Rock. But most people didn't realize that until the end when I said I was Kid Rock. But I had a producing partner. She had a dream of this idea of the show and told me about it, and then I was like, I'll go write that. And I came back with a draft, and then I had like a chemistry read where I invited a couple friends who I thought would be great for the show, and we read through it, and they asked me a ton of questions that were so helpful. The main question that I found the most helpful was, what do you want the audience to feel at the end of this? And I was like, not sure. I was like, I gotta figure that out.
Yeah.
And then almost everyone in that chemistry read ended up being in the show. And I did a couple more drafts and rewrites, but kind of locked the script the first week or so of rehearsal in May. But that show also had a lot of audience interaction, and so there were open moments. We would do a 2-minute deliberation after we would perform a piece of the play, and would really ask the audience, like, what did you think of that play, and should it be banned? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Were you bored by it? And so, yeah, there was like space there to have a discussion. But yeah, I think having people that you trust to look at your work is super important. I'm the same way, where I'm like, I don't know if I think this is good, but if you say it is bad, that's gonna really wreck me today.
Yeah.
But also, yeah, having confidence in what you've put out there. Some people, I hate to say it, some people have bad instincts, and so you have to also parse that out of being like, ooh, I don't know if that note is the right note for the play. You can't just take every single note that comes your way. Obviously, take it in, ingest it, receive it, but then parse it out. Is it serving your piece?
And also, like, you can hear a really bad note and kind of cipher through what they're actually trying to say. You know what I mean? Sometimes just like I didn't like that part doesn't necessarily mean you wrote something bad. It means maybe you just need to deliver it in a different way.
Yeah.
And so it's not always like just scrap those pages. It's what are they actually trying to tell you as an audience or as a reader, and how can you maneuver that?
Because also sometimes the notes that like I'm just thinking about it, where I've like received something like, oh, I don't like this, and I'm like, okay, gotcha, and then it's the question of why, and then like it sometimes takes a long. Sometimes the reason is like, it doesn't matter, like it doesn't make sense, or it's like in unpacking the why, you realize a bigger problem or a bigger aspect of the piece you didn't realize. I'm just remembering something. I'm like, I wrote this thing that was like my favorite scene in this little play, and people were delighted by it, but when it played into an audience, like it was a very comedic scene, but very dark, and nobody laughed. But it was because all of the previous scenes before it didn't allow for laughter to happen, and we're like, oh shoot. Now you know, like that's the bigger problem, other than like the scene's funny but nobody's laughing. It's like no. How did you set up the structure of your story? And so just something I was thinking about. The other thing I wanted to dive into though is the biggest hurdle that you sometimes find when writing an ensemble story. And something that comes to me sometimes, I'm like, how many characters does this piece really need? Because I will just start writing, and then I'm like, oh, like this is not the way it's coming together. I start editing before it's done. But that's an example. But what is the biggest hurdle in your experiences? And Mandy, we'll start with you. What's been the biggest hurdle in writing an ensemble story?
Let me think for a second.
Yeah, of course. And I mean, Rashawn, Will, if you guys are like, I actually know exactly what's really difficult, you could jump into that too, please.
I mean, this is kind of a lame answer, but like people's schedules. Like you really want to consider, like if my piece this last year, it was 7 actors, but 10 of us had to be in the room all the time. It was like me, a stage manager, and then I had an assistant director because I was in another show, so he was taking over a bit. And like when we do runs to get all 10 people in the room, that's hard. People have like busy lives. So you want to really think to yourself, if you have a tight process, like making sure people are on it. And this kind of sounds silly, but this year, even though they're my friends, like we signed contracts to be like, you are on time, you are going to have your stuff memorized by this date. I love you, but you have to do that if you're going to commit to this. So yeah, just scheduling and making sure you really know and are careful with who you're going to work with. Like if you give somebody a part, you know that they're going to follow through and memorize stuff by that date and do that thing. Yeah, I guess scheduling and trust in people.
Yeah, trust is huge. The larger your cast gets, the amount of problems that can come up grow exponentially. But also on the flip side, I don't want to waste anyone's time. So like if I write a character that like comes in at the last 4 pages and is on stage for 2 minutes, I'm like, oh, that's a bummer for them. Like they've committed to this whole process and they're just like a walk-on. So I don't know. I tend to write things that's like everyone's on stage the whole time, which is also can be a problem, especially when it comes to scheduling. But I don't know. I write for the festival or for the venue, so like I know I booked this thing and I know that this is going to be a Fringe show, so I tend to write very specific, keeping in mind the limitations of Fringe in terms of like scenic, in terms of transitions, in terms of tech. I try and keep things. I like to write one location with all the actors on stage the whole time, just so that it feels like a Fringe show to me.
Yeah, I guess to piggyback off of the number of people can be a hindrance, but it can be a blessing. Hey.
I think Ellen has my phone and has played the music. So I will go to my laptop in the booth and turn it off. And I don't know where Ellen is.
It's just a little dance break.
But, yeah. Sorry, it threw me off. I will ask a question and I'll go run off. I'm really curious about I'll be back. I'll be back. Pretend this is like a 3-second intermission.
Yeah.
It's gonna stop as soon as he gets out
Yeah.
of the room, and then we'll start again. Yeah, everybody
He's
just
gotta go
got
before the theater.
Now I'm jealous. I like wish we got to see all of each other's
I
shows.
know.
I didn't get to see either.
It's all family friends, and I love
I heard great things.
Pam is everyone's like pretty okay. Because it was dark.
she was the force. Yeah, she was.
And she just writes nonstop.
Yeah.
Like she's already written 2 or 3 more plays since Family Fest.
Jesus.
Okay. Thank you for your patience on a brief intermission. We're back. This is gonna be a little harder to segue then into this, but I wanted to talk about a lot of fringe shows, whether it be solo or ensemble, have a very personal, or Rashawn, you were saying, writing about what you know and sharing from personal experience. I wanted to talk to you 3 about how you navigate writing or directing vulnerability in your scripts. And just like to know where my brain's going at with this, Mandy, I would love to talk about like Arizona Rain and how that process for you. I know that Fringe wasn't the debut of that, but like how that was navigated. But also a lot of your work deals with heavier themes. And Will, for Family Fries, how that navigated itself too. And then Rashawn also being like that personal experience of like, these was my experiences that I'm putting into this. How do you navigate that? And I'll give you maybe a softer question before that while you're like thinking of that, because I got kind of a bigger question. Did you have a director with your process? And was that director you or someone else? Because I know that's another relationship of vulnerability. So have a moment to think about that. I also did a time check. We're at like 11, and I think this ends at 11:30. 12. It ends at 12.
Yeah, we got time.
We have so much time. Okay, great. Then, since it ends at 12, at 11:30, I'm going to try to get us into audience questions, because I really want to get what's on your minds from our panelists. Just a heads up there.
Clarification question.
Absolutely.
Send back to you. Are you talking about vulnerability in ourselves as the writer or director, or vulnerability in the characters of the piece that we're
Ooh, okay, yeah. This is kind of a two-folded question. This is an essay question, basically, so my apologies. But yeah, on one hand, it's the vulnerability as a writer in talking about themes that are very personal to you that you then put on the stage. And then also, in some of these cases, as you guys have done Fringe for multiple times, not just last year, it's when you're receiving a vulnerable piece, or a piece that is has high emotions in it. You know, I'm talking about this because I had my ticket to Family Friends and I wasn't able to see it. But there's a lot of like, I know.
I didn't go.
I
couldn't see it.
Gotcha. But I know that like it was a very tumultuous, like it's a very emotionally heavy piece.
Yeah.
And I know that as a director or as a writer, presenting that is an interesting relationship, and also like how do you navigate that space, that rehearsal space even, I guess.
We kind of started off with like a similar thing of a set of agreements, and
Okay.
I love Brendan Brown, and we talked about braving, which it's an acronym that I can't remember all the things that they stand for, but it's like boundaries and receiving and accountability. So like we kind of set up a framework. The other thing too, when you're working with an ensemble, especially if you're directing, is like with Family Fries, I'd never worked with any of those actors before. Which is an unusual experience. Usually I work with people who are my friends. And we're all very good friends now at Family Fries, but it was a little intimidating just walking in and being like, okay, we have a very short amount of time to achieve a lot. We don't have time to like understand how each one of you receives and communicates. And so I had to quickly pick up on like, oh, you seem kind of like a kinesthetic person. You seem like you're in your body a lot, so I'm gonna have to talk to you more about like how it feels. Or this person might be like, I'm really auditory and I hear everything, and I have to listen to my lines, I record them, listen to them back. So I try and, as director, figure out like how everybody learns and receives quickly. With vulnerability, especially directing vulnerability on stage, I feel like people tend to not be openly vulnerable. It's a thing that people hide and cover up. So if I feel like there's a particularly vulnerable moment, I usually have them cover it with something. So maybe they have a crack that shows where we see a little bit of vulnerability where they hide in their fingernails, but then they laugh it off, and it's not a big deal. But they cover the vulnerability with something else. We usually don't sit in vulnerability. We squirm out of it, or get angry, or start crying, or laugh it off. You know. That's my essay on vulnerability.
5 stars. There you go. Rashawn, Mandy, if you want to take a crack at it.
I wrote it and directed it. I was in it. So that was just so many hats.
Did you recommend?
Well, honestly, I don't recommend it, but do it. You know, like Mandy said, Fringe is the place to just succeed or fail, but it's an experience you'll never forget. And like Will, I work with people that I know and trust. I wrote those parts for them. We had just come off of doing the show together, so I kind of knew everyone's strengths and their voices, and that did a lot of the heavy lifting. And directing is not about being the smartest person in the room. It's about surrounding yourself with the most talented people you know and helping them execute this story and this vision together. So I'm not that smart, but everyone around me was brilliant. And vulnerability-wise, you know, I try to be as open with them as possible through the writing process. The show we had just done together was about my father, and this show was about my experience as a server and surviving in LA as an actor and just trying to make money. And also, you know, Michael Myers is behind you and it's crazy. So once you have that shorthand with people that you trust and know, it makes everything so much easier. We went out and did an escape room together. We had like a pizza party. Like, you know, you can bond in so many different ways. And then it makes the rehearsal process and the performing so much easier because you're just on stage with your family. And I think that's what ensemble writing and performing is so delicious to me, because I commend all the solo work because I can never do it. I do not want to be on stage by myself. But when you're surrounded by all these beautiful people, it's magic. So you always feel like you're in good hands because you're protected there's 10 people on stage, so you're good.
I have a lot. No, you're good. I have a lot to share because my pieces definitely deal with really heavy topics, which I guess I'll kind of dance around because I feel weird trigger warning all of them. But a couple things I'll say. One are trigger warnings before the show. Love them or hate them. They're theater standard in 2025. I know some people who have been like, oh, I hate the trigger warning, but like, you're just gonna get hate if you don't put them on. So just trigger warnings before your show in the lobby, in the announcements. I tend to make them fun when I'm saying them. I'll like record my voice. The one last year, there was like some animal cruelty, so I was like, no cats were actually harmed in this production. Trigger warnings. My first show, we had an intimacy coordinator. If you're not intimacy certified, I'm sure you know somebody who knows somebody, and that can be incredibly helpful if you have intimacy in your piece. Before show or before every rehearsal, we do a check-in, and sometimes if we have a lot to do that day, it's like, what ice cream flavor are you today and why? Or if we have a little more space in the rehearsal, share a little bit of relevant emotions of like what you're bringing. So for example, my first show, there was a lot of 2 characters. There was a lot of touch and fight, and there was fighting too. So it was like, where are okay zones today, and where are some red zones we're going to be more careful with. Check-ins. I have one more thing to say. And then if your piece is dealing with heavier material, and you also have that insecurity as a writer of like, oh, am I a good writer? But also sometimes I'm like, am I gonna is this being portrayed in an okay and an acceptable way? Like, I think it is. My last show dealt with not this show, the year before, dealt with a really heavy topic. And I kind of talked about it in this roundabout, sort of funny way. And it was really helpful to have people in the room to be like, hey, is this like being received well, and am I handling this really dark topic in like an okay way? And so it's helpful to have your to be honest with your ensemble too, and they can be honest with you like if something rubs them the wrong way. But yeah, my whole thing is vulnerable pieces. So if you have any questions about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I apologize. I'm finally coming to because I'm like, oh, recentering myself in music. And there was a couple things I wanted to touch on that we've been kind of discussing throughout this question and the question prior. The thing about, and this kind of goes into another question that I have that we'll talk about. So Fringe, you know, it is really a labor of love, and there are shows that do pay stipends, and that's a whole separate conversation of how they do that or how they want to do that. But at the end of the day, yeah, it is like with an ensemble show, you're dealing with so many people's schedules. Just like from my personal experience, I know that like an equity or like a really professional production, they have 3 weeks, but they're always in the room every single day doing that. Like that's their job, and not everyone has that luxury. We're all working our other day jobs. We're always doing so many other things that sometimes I do this thing where we allot for like 7 weeks of rehearsal time, which sounds insane, but it's like, no, you're only rehearsing like 2 or 3 evenings throughout that, and not everyone's called. I know there was a show I was working where we had that 7-week thing, but we had 2 actors gone for 2 separate chunks of 2 weeks because one was moving and the other one was doing other things, and we wanted to make it work. But we're also like, we have to understand and respect people's times, and that's also where like the booking of people being like, oh yeah, you're not called this day because we're not doing that scene. Like, don't call someone when you're not doing their scenes, you know? Rashawn, before I jump into the other things that we're talking about, so you were acting in it, writing and directing, which again, it's like, it's if there was ever a place and a time to do that, Fringe is that like warm space where like you just experiment, you play, and you have a good time. I wanted to know who else was a part of your production team, because because some people were just like, I'm soloing it, I'm gonna go for it. But even like, was there anyone that even, whether on your production team or just someone that was like, oh, I just need to talk to this person at the end of a day? Because I do want to stress that like, yes, do all these things that you want to do, but also have an additional person in the room or in your life that's like, this is the person I talk to when I want to decompress about it, and they're my friend, and they're gonna support, and they're gonna just, you know, cheer me on while I question everything.
I one of my good friends was the stage manager, and then 2 people in the cast were kind of co-directing. I wasn't on stage much, but we would swap, and they would sit in the audience and they would direct, and if I was on stage, and then we would swap and I would be directing. And then my best friend, who is the lead of the show, I trust her with my life, and obviously with the show, and we would go home. We're also roommates, so you know, we would just bounce off of each other. She's the first person that reads everything I write, and you need one person, like you said, that's just like your home base, and that you can go to. And maybe they're not in the show, maybe they are, but someone that will tell it to you straight, but also hear you out, because you're gonna need to vent. It's a long process. There's gonna be days where you're like, I want my deposit back, because I'm not doing this. But that's all part of the process. It's the good and the bad, and then you'll get to the end and you'll be so glad you did it. But having that person is so important, and she was that for me.
Awesome. And also good to know, because like, that's so important that sometimes gets lost in the weeds of doing a show. You start zeroing in and you're like, wait a minute, there's a larger picture. This is one part of my life, and it does seem to take up all of it for a moment, but like having that third perspective, that second point of view is super valuable. Something else we were discussing was the feedback of the piece, and whether or not, like, at Fringe you'll see a lot of things that like, this is an in-progress show. Fringe is the beginning of this journey, it's not the end. And also, just clarifying the room, Fringe should never be the end of your writing process and journey, right? It's like, this is a stepping stone where you may return to it much later, but like, do it here, grab that information, and feel free and empowered to take it elsewhere. So a lot of people would like leave feedback online, as we were talking, but also what I'd seen last year, which I thought was really fascinating, is that like, whether or not venues were like booking 75-minute slots or whatever, someone would have an hour-long performance, I saw this a lot in Ensemble, I think in both actually, Ensemble and Solo. They would book a 75-minute slot, have an hour-long performance, and then take a 3-minute break, and then come out again and ask, like, have a group discussion on the piece they just saw. And like, it was mentioned beforehand, it was like on the website being like, this is in progress, there is an optional discussion afterwards, and I get sometimes there's a fear of like, is anyone gonna stay for this talkback, for this note session? And there were a lot of people that stayed in these. I was like happy to see that, and that artists were receiving the feedback at that level. That is sometimes different than a stage reading or just a table read work. That was really fascinating. And then trigger warnings. You are able to list trigger warnings on the website. In fact, it is highly encouraged that you do that. Again, as you get engrossed in the Fringe community and you're seeing so many shows, you may be seeing 5 shows in a day, if it's possible. It's very exciting, or even like 2 or 3, you know. But there is this thing that naturally happens where it's like, oh, I didn't know this material was gonna be so heavy. I gotta run over to the Broadwater and see a clown show. And it's like, okay, if you know that warning and you're prepped ahead of time, it's great. But if it kind of comes at you from nowhere, it just is really hard on an audience. And so I really do implore, like, use those toggles as you know, this is the beginning of the process, but you'll explore the website, and we will hold sessions on how to explore the website and everything. But just bookmark it in your brain that, like, if you have a content warning, make sure you know that you're putting that on the website, on your project page. It really does save you so much time, and also so much time of your audience, who may leave the show being like, I did not like that, I did not expect that, the expectations are way off. There are certain extents I'm like, we love a surprise, but if it's like a really emotionally heavy topic of loss, or of, you know, so many other things, it is important to list those, especially because Fringe is moving so fast. Sorry, those are just the footnotes I was making along the journey. But now I'm here, I'm back. I'm back. I wanted to talk about how, if it comes upon you guys, how do you address, I have 3 questions here, I'm gonna start with 1. How did you address writer's block if you came across it in your journey? I know that sometimes we're working with deadlines, and it's a kind of a pushing through kind of thing, but I'm curious to hear how, whether that's writer's block or imposter syndrome. And like, part of the process of writing is also just, sometimes not even writing. It's just the brainstorming, it's just the like, I need to go and dissociate for a second, and then I'll return. And like, is that something you've ever encountered? And how do you kind of deal with that?
Yeah, all the time. I like the initial idea to me is always so appealing, and then you sit down and you're like, well, I have 2 pages. That was great. But I think outlines work really well for me, or whatever idea you have, whatever image you're seeing in your head, whether it's like the final scene or a tableau on stage, I think anchor yourself in that and then work from there. Whether that's like the middle of the show, the end of the show, the opening scene, just like always go back to that and then kind of blossom the scripts from that. And whatever your process is, I don't think there's a right or a wrong way to write, but just always go back to why are you making this? What nugget of the idea was it that made you sit down and say, yeah, this is something I need to get out of me? Yeah, I don't know if that's good.
I feel like I don't know if I get writer's block, but I procrastinate a lot. And so deadlines, like, nothing inspires like a deadline, which is, for me, is one of the reasons why I do Fringe, is because if there wasn't a date where you had to submit and say officially that you're doing this. Ice cream?
I think there's a washing machine
Oh,
in the back.
laundry's done.
Yeah, I think it's done.
But I feel like when I also kind of loathe the process of writing. It's my least favorite. I really like directing and acting because it's collaborative. Writing for me is a very solitary adventure, and all the pressure pressure's on me. But I find when I do get into like a flow, then it's really enjoyable. But I have to like make a bunch of space and time and like almost do a warm up to get into the right mind space to start writing. Just like if you're gonna act on stage, like you wouldn't just walk out there and start this, you would do your physical vocal warm up, get mentally prepared. I feel like I have to do the same thing for writing, to like get into a kind of a mindset for it. Otherwise, yes, or it's just coffee, or you know, it's like whatever. You have to create your like writing space that, and then if Rick Rubin has a book called the Creative Act. It's amazing that I love. But he talks about like if you get struck by inspiration, if a song comes to you or a play or something, his whole thing is like, don't stop until it's done. He's like, put everything else in your life aside. Like you have been blessed with this inspiration, and to like keep pulling that thread, because you might wake up tomorrow and it's gone, and then you're like, oh crap, I got 8 pages, and then I was like, oh, I have to go, you know, to my nephew's birthday. It's like, whatever, your nephew will have other birthdays. Finish the play, write the song, you know what I mean? So like, yeah, if that genius strikes you, it's your job as an artist, if you're living the way of an artist, to pursue that to its, until you fall asleep.
You remind me of the nights where I'm like, it's like, oh, I'm ready to go to bed, and then I get an idea and I'm like, well, I'm falling asleep at 4 a.m. now, and it happens, and then I'm like, well, time to wake up at 7. But and it's like it's exhausting, and like there's a balance to it where it's like within a certain amount of reason, because it's like we all have so many, like being an artist in LA is always followed by and all of these other things to support that. So I get where it's like, yeah, I want to chase it, but I'm also like, I gotta find my limitations to this. But you guys are both talking about like, or discussing like mindset, and I'm just a nerd about it. And when I start writing a script, kind of a playlist starts evolving with it.
I do that too.
Okay, yeah. So Mandy, please, I mean, speak to that, or to like what happens when you encounter writer's block.
I love a deadline. I love not even just through Fringe, but like self-imposed deadlines. Find an accountability buddy. I have a friend that we meet every week. We do writer's night. Sometimes writer's night is 2 hours in the afternoon, or like whatever, whenever you can find it. And it's also great because we're actually meeting tonight, but I have so much to do for my day job. I'm just gonna work on my day job stuff. But I know, I'm like, oh my God, I should be writing. Next week, I really gotta be writing. So accountability buddies are great. Yeah, love a playlist. I always make a playlist. Immerse yourself in what inspires you. So when I can, I love to go on a walk, or just like be in nature. That really inspires me. But yeah, I love to outline. I love journal. If you've heard of morning pages, I don't know who came up with it, some great, brilliant person, but it's like, if you have time in the mornings, but at some point you just like take a piece of paper and you dump whatever you're thinking, and your pen does not lift the page until 3 pages are done. So it's anything that helps you with like stream of consciousness. I love that stuff, because a lot of times when I sit down to write, I'm like, what can I pull from? And I go to my multitude of random notes pages or thoughts and journals. Okay, that phrase is cool. How can we work off that? But yeah, I don't really experience writer's block that much.
Well, fine then.
But also, it takes a lot for me to sit down and write too.
Yeah.
So.
For me, the block is like, should this be a parenthetical, or should
Yeah.
the way it's formatting that really screws me up. And then I
Yeah.
get like, no, this should be bold and italicized over here, and then I'm like, I've spent 25 minutes figuring out like formatting.
Although I will say to that, because I've been very lucky enough to start reading like some like plays on the New Play Exchange, or some friends of mine that are like they're playwrights and they're wanting to play with the format of it all. Currently it's my jam right now, where I'm just fascinated on different plays. I mean, just reading different plays, but also reading how they get printed out. Like there was a play I was reading, and it was just like small thought, and then it doesn't even get completed, enter, and like this play was like maybe 100 pages, but if you compiled it all and crushed it into what is the traditional format, it then results into like a 50-page piece, but it doesn't read the same. And I will say, don't like sacrifice your intentionality in a script when doing that, unless you want to save trees, and I think that's important. But also, like, I will print out scripts all day and mark them all up. But it's so fascinating to me, this idea of like the hyphenations, the italicizations, like all of that is so unique to your voice as a playwright, and how that transfers over to an actor who then starts reading it. Like, I've just been seeing a lot of like, I feel like texting has really altered how we read things now, which is cool. I think it's kind of cool because you read things so differently now. And then playwrights have now been like, oh, based on that interaction, I'm like, things will be in all caps, things will be left lowercase, punctualization will be left
A
out.
bunch of emojis in the script.
Truly emojis in the script.
Yeah.
And even like prior to the cell phone texting boom of this all, even like works like Sarah Kane, if that's like something that you're familiar with, it's so fascinating the way 448 Psychosis reads. And so there is no rules as long as you're sticking to your own rules, the rules that you made up. But Rashawn, I wanted to touch base again on outlines. Because I'm also someone who really loves an outline, and sometimes will arguably write an outline and then let the script just sit for a while and just not be like, I can return to that whenever. Is that a common practice that you're doing with outlines? And are you like, how does that work for you with outlines? Are you like beating out the plays, like beat for beat, or is it like act 1, scene 2, this happens? How is that process for you?
Yeah, I try to fight against being this type A, like strict control freak. So even if I will beat for beat do the entire play or movie or screenplay, whatever, I try not to stick to it, especially if there's something that inspires you out of nowhere. That's just like the starting point, and something you can always go back and refer to, and you're like, oh, that was a pretty cool idea, even though the script looks nothing like how you started. But I do it just to kind of ground myself in whatever idea I thought was cool. But now I'm waking up today, I'm like, this all sucks, and then you just go back to the outline, and you're like, no, you had something, and that was the foundation, and then you can play with the format or with the medium, and as long as you start somewhere and have the rules, you can break them later. So I think that's kind of what the outline is for me.
Absolutely. And I also love the idea of like, the playwright you were yesterday is going to have notes on the playwright you were tomorrow, and vice versa. You know, so when you leave that outline, and yes, I feel like I'm in the same wavelength where I'm like, I love rules, I love structures, but at a certain point when I'm in the midst of actually writing and looking at it as reference, I'm like, oh, I'm going to go in this direction. And sometimes the whole outline gets thrown out the window, or sometimes it's like, I have this additional beat and this additional moment that I love, and now I'm coming back to my outline and seeing where the story's supposed to go. So it's kind of like almost like a compass, even, where you're navigating as you go. I do remember the first time I wrote a script, I did note cards, and I think I wrote like 80 of them, and like a crazy person, and I was like, this seems excessive, but it helped. But I was just like, would I do it again? No. I think I have different ways now.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to ask the following question, and then we're going to throw it to questions in the audience, and I think, pending time, we'll just continue having this conversation. But I wanted to know whether it was, what advice do you wish you were given when you were starting your writing journeys? So that doesn't even necessarily mean like this show right now that you were writing. Oh, there's 2 questions I like. So that's the first one, and I'll get to them later. But like, what's the advice you wish you were given when you were starting out, knowing what you know now? You know, what would Will tell past Will, Mandy tell past Mandy, Rashawn tell past Rashawn?
No, this is more producing side, if you're producing your own
yeah.
work, but it's just get organized. Get organized, have a system, and let people help you, and delegate jobs. Because suddenly, like, if you are writing and directing, and God forbid acting in your, like, I could never do all 3, but like, it is a lot of work, and it's more work than you realize. And once Fringe gets going, like, designate jobs to people. Okay, my assistant director is gonna do this, you're gonna do this. You guys are all gonna come to office hours these days, because I can't come to all of them because I have to be making this prop or like whatever. So just get organized and delegate is what I'd say.
While they're thinking about that, I do want to shout out this thing about office hours, and also like, it's a lot. The responsibilities do stack up, and know that you don't have to do it by yourself. and like the marketing angle of it all. Like sometimes you're like, oh, I need to go to office hours, but like I don't have the emotional bandwidth or capacity to go. Sometimes, you know, in 2023 when I did it, I was like, oh, like I'm just gonna invite a friend who like isn't really connected to Fringe, but we'll just be there. We hang out, we vibe, we talk to other artists. But like if nothing else, I'm like, we are grounded here together. And although I may not have the most energy, together we're gonna enjoy and talk to more people. But like there is a whole marketing gambit to Fringe, which we talk about in another workshop, 1,000%. Because it is this giant thing. I mean, 400 shows last year, and you know, the likelihood of similar numbers this year. It's like wanting to connect with the community, and then also be like, here's my show. This is what it's about. It takes a lot out of you. And these can be more producing. The next question I do have is actually kind of producing anyway. But well, yeah, Will and Rashawn.
I would just go back. I'd go back to earlier self, and I would say, do it sooner.
Okay, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I think I sat around for a couple years going like, there's no, well, I would love to do some theater in LA. Like, where do I do this? And then I heard about Fringe, and I was like, oh, cool, yeah, I'll do that. But yeah, I would just say like, do it. Just trust yourself and do it now.
I would tell him to trust your instincts. You know, a lot of times you're like, has this been done before? Is this original? Is it funny? Is it scary? Is it dramatic? Like, it just trust that what you're doing is going to work for somebody.
Yeah.
It might not work for everybody, but it's going to work for somebody.
Incredible. And yeah, I think that that's also something that at least I forget about when I'm writing. It's like, I'm writing this and, oh boy, I hope I like it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, wait, do other people even like it? And Fringe was just, when I did it, such a welcoming space where people were like, oh my God, I'm resonating with this as well. Like, this means so much to me. And I'm like, oh, thank God, like other people are recognizing this and empathizing in this way that I'm like, thank God.
Yeah.
One question that is a little bit more on the producing side, but because all of you here are multi-hyphenates and like you're writing and then also doing so much more, oftentimes also producing. Like so many writers or performers are also producing on this journey. And I wanted to talk about how you handle when you're writing something that is a bit far-fetched or really, really like a massive feat to undertake at a Fringe level, and how you problem solve that. And I'll kind of give you an example where I've like written a piece where I'm like, oh yeah, these people are gambling, and then they're gonna rip each other's eyes out, and then they're gonna vomit oil, and that's all gonna happen in this one scene, and we load in 15 minutes, and we load out in 15 minutes, because that's like the fast pacedness of Fringe. You traditionally get 15 minutes to bring all your stuff in and see your audience. You perform your show, and then you have 15 minutes to get out with all your stuff so that the next show can come in. So there's a lot of like technical things that you got to figure out. But Rashawn, I want to ask, particularly because you were mentioning blood, and every venue is different. Some venues are like no liquids, no blood. Almost every single venue is no glitter because it's everywhere. How have you navigated? We'll start with Rashawn, and then I want to hear from you too as well. These big concepts and how you, as a writer, you're like, it's the producer's job, and you go, oh wait, that's me. And we'll touch on this larger conversation too in a panel right after this actually. But I want to get your feedback from this too, because you guys also have this wealth of knowledge.
Yeah, blood. I like you said, I just wrote it like, yeah, the head rips off, taking the tongue out, and it's super cool. And then that actually was the hardest part was the chase scenes. Like I really wanted to put chase scenes on the stage, and so we built these 3 walls on clothing racks to kind of like flip the stage every time the killer was just like chasing people, and that was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. But it was once it worked, I was like, yes, even the cast was like, oh, he's happy today because it worked. We've never seen him happy today. But that is the upside of working with an ensemble. You had 10 people that could someone painted the walls to look like brick. Someone helped me transfer the clothing racks, and those 15 minutes were insane before and after. But when you have 10 people, you delegate, we rehearse your load-ins and load-outs. It is so important. The blood I had to kind of just relinquish, and it was just red cloth. I had one moment in this show where we could do blood. Everything else was just red cloths that was just blood everywhere. But the walls like kicked my ass. But once it worked, it was like, yes.
I will say red fabric is the hero of blood substitution at Fringe. I was producing a show and there was a lot of blood in it, and we were like losing our minds being like, how do we get this to work? And at a certain point, what we ended up doing is like, we're gonna teach our actors how to do sleight of hand so they can like have a, like, you know, someone gets a bloody nose, like how do you appear, or this red rag or this red piece of fabric. And then you start just coming up with like these little clever ways that truly like tend to enhance the piece, and like it's fun because at the end of the day it's live theater, and so it's not film. Not everything is like this has to be exact. So that was just, yeah, it's interesting. Also load-ins, rehearsing load-ins is invaluable. I've seen shows that like they tell me that, oh yeah, we rehearsed our load-in for 2 rehearsals and like for 8 hours. They were just rehearsing how to move in and out. Of course they had, there was a show that had like a full campsite they set up here on stage, and they like created a song. Oh, you know this, Will? Yeah.
Last croissant.
The Last Croissant. I've heard of the lore. I want to see it, but I've never gotten the chance to. But they like would, they'd be going on a camping trip and they'd be singing songs while they were loading in. The audience was also coming in. So like that, you get to decide when your theatrical experience starts for your audience, whether that's give us 10 minutes and then the audience is gonna come in 5. I will say, don't underestimate how fast an audience can come into a theater. I've seen shows that like we have 3 minutes before we're supposed to start. They open the doors and they say, get in! And the audience, boom, they're in like 2 minutes. And then you're like, oh, thank God, that was way faster. Because it's not a traditional theater going experience where the Amundsen has, you know, so many seats, but also like, oh, we're gonna start 15 minutes late. I'm like, no. You really can't do that here at Fringe because you then set off the clocks and the schedules for everyone else. So just like frame of reference. But Will and Mandy.
Yeah, I think the constraints, the limitations that Fringe presents are really fun problems to kind of solve. And when people creatively solve those problems, those are some of my favorite moments that I see at a Fringe show. Like, yeah, I mean, The Last Croissant was one that I was like, I walked in knowing that they only have 15 minutes to load in, and seeing how much was on the stage was actually this kind of like awe-inspiring moment. But yeah, I don't know. I was a D-Task kid. Did anybody do D-Task?
What's that?
It's the Drama Teachers Association of Southern California. It was every high school that participates. It's like 60 or 80 high schools. They all have, it's like large group drama, large group serious. But the confines of it are, you have 4 metal chairs, no costumes, no props. And you're doing like Titus introductions or something. So it really becomes like, how creative can you be with these limitations? And the things that we built and made with 4 metal folding chairs, and like the scenery that we constructed when I was in high school was just like a formative experience of being like, you can do so much with so little. And I think that's kind of like a theme of Fringe, is like, how much can you do with this very tight window of time?
Awesome.
Yeah.
Don't
Sorry.
please
I
go.
was just gonna say, like, really just echo what you said, but all I would really add is like, just write it first. Like, don't let something scary limit your writing. My play this year, like, somebody fully died and went to the underworld, and there was like smoke and blood and like everything. My email to my venue managers, I was like, hey. But like, I wrote it anyway, and then we just creatively problem solved. And the only thing that really there was less blood than I wanted, but that was the only. We did have some blood, but I was like, do I really want to wash these costumes every time when I'm seeing 5 shows after?
Or you know, just call it out and be like, blood. Yeah, it's a Fringe show. We can't use blood, but imagine blood. If your show is cool with
Oh,
it.
yeah.
I was actually doing a show here a couple weeks ago, and I was supposed to have a big flip out, and there was a table full of props, and in the moment, I really wanted to flip the whole table, but I was like, that would be real messy and bad, so I just went, table flip! Just said it.
Cute.
And it got great. Yeah.
Amazing. I will also say that, like, as you're going into office hours and talking to other artists, again, everyone is. It's very rare that you have like, I am just an actor and that is all I do. It's like, no, we are all multi-hyphenates, and so you'll be surprised. Like, ask around, and be like, hey, I have this problem in my script that I'm trying to accomplish this idea. Like, I remember talking to a Fringer, being like, I'm trying to create a car on stage, or just the idea of a car, and I was like, oh, like, what if you get those like little clip-on lights and like just attach them to a chair, and like it's like really like what are the little ingenious ways that you can give the idea of something larger, because you don't need to bring in a giant SUV car, you know, or you could do a bunch of different things. So ask your fellow peers at office hours. They tend to have amazing ideas, and they're also just super cool. I actually would like to throw it to the audience for questions. So we're gonna do that, and I can see you all because I put the house lights on, which is fantastic. So if you have a question, please introduce yourself, give us your preferred pronouns, and if you have a show that you're like wanting to bring to Fringe, like talk about that too. Why not? But yeah, please, yeah.
Do I stand?
No, it's okay. You're good.
Okay. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Name's Asha. I don't know if I'm gonna write a show. Because I don't consider myself a writer. That's a whole other thing. How do you, when you thinking of writing a show that's personal, and you want to write for an ensemble, like, do you write it from like your point of view, or are you trying to write it, or do you write it from the audience's point of view? And do you try to see if it'll convey, like, will the audience understand what's happening, or you just write it from what you know?
I can speak on that. Just because my first show, I really wrote. I fell into writing by accident. Really, the only reason I'd written it was it was my last semester in college, and I only did acting. And then COVID hit, and I was like, well, I don't want to act over Zoom. That's stupid. And so then I was like, I guess I'll take a playwriting class. And then I had gone through a really tough situation, and so I kind of like word vomited this show, and then I submitted it to something just because my teacher told me to, and then it won, which was crazy. And then I did it out here just independently producing, and then got pulled into Fringe, and suddenly it like won so many awards, and I was like, oh my god. And then everybody was like, what's next, or asking you to do this, and I was like, I've never written anything. I simply was just processing for me, and it was like, yeah, I wrote it really just from my perspective. I wrote myself as a character. I mean, there were some things that weren't completely me, but it really was just like a self-insert in me, like weirdly working through this thing in my life through a play. And I don't know, I didn't really consider the audience or anything at first, but it resonated, and I think you should think of all perspectives, but there is something to be said about that, like what you know and how you feel and whatnot. If you really believe in yourself and put like your whole self into your piece, like it is going to resonate with people because it's like truthful and honest. Hopefully that kind of answers.
Yeah, I mean, at first, 100% you're a writer. Like,
Yeah.
nobody needs to give you that confirmation. Like, you're a writer, and I think there's no limit to how personal you can get, and the specificity is where the people can relate. And someone will come up to you after the show and say, like, I can't believe this happened to you, this happened to me too. And all of a sudden, because you were so specific, you've reached more people than you ever thought you could. So I think you should, as comfortable as you are, put as much of yourself on the page as you can.
Yeah. And I'd say don't concern yourself with the audience's reception of it. You know what I mean? You can't know what they're gonna think. So you just kind of have to write what you want to write, and then their reception of it is kind of their own thing. You know what I mean? So I'd say focus on your point of view of it and your story to tell, and then everyone's going to receive it in their own way. You know, it's hard to put yourself in the audience's perspective because everybody's different who's in the audience.
sorry. I also want to add though. There's a level of, we've been talking about like the specificity of it all, and there's this like saying I think that says like, oh, as specific as you can be is like you will have a larger impact on your being specific and having specificity than if you're trying to appeal to everyone, then you're not really relating to anyone. I will also say that there is because again, writing is vulnerable, and at Fringe, you like, so many people are coming to see shows. You can't control who's seeing your shows, and nor should you. But there's a moment where you're like, oh my God, is the audience gonna get it? Is the audience gonna understand, or what have I done? And at a certain point, you have to relinquish that, and also be like, well, I actually don't care in that way anymore. Where it's like I'm gonna make a deliberate decision, and either the audience that gets it, and the audience that doesn't. And like, we're all gonna come out with different viewpoints of the script. But I know that like from when I was writing a show, I had this decision to make of like, do I wanna translate, because I was writing in 2 different languages, do I wanna translate what is not in English? And I had decided that like, no, I'm not gonna do that. And I know that will alienate some people, and I know that others, while still understanding the context, will get it. And then another group will be like, whoa, like this is a piece that was made, that feels like it was made for me. And it's like, well, I wanted to make it for myself and other people who share a similar walk of life and experience. And it's so gratifying where like, you don't need 50 people to tell you it was amazing, but you just need that one person to be like, I'm so appreciative that you shared this and that I got to see it and witness something that I encounter all the time and don't see on stage all the time. Because that's another thing about Fringe is like, so many people are coming to tell stories that often aren't getting put on larger stages, and so this is that platform to do that. There was also something else, but I forgot it already. But sorry, I didn't want to cut you off.
Well, my friend here, we know each other a long time. He's been trying to get me to like write about my story, and I keep going no, like it's a no, because I didn't get trained in writing. Like I didn't take like a playwriting class. I didn't take a writing class. I was more like the performance person in theater. So I know that, and I know the background of theater, but like I used the structure of like writing it and having it in a certain way. I tell him all the time, like I don't write, like my writing is bad. So trying to get out of my head, he knows me, like I'll be in my head like a lot. But yeah, I think I'll just write it and then you can help me structure it the way it needs to be.
Yeah, I will add too, because I did mention this conversation of structure and format, and I am a big nerd about those things, but I also care more about, and we're often more excited about like the personal stories and things that don't always have structure. And so it's a thing of like, structure and formatting are just like, sometimes just become things that prevent you from writing. And they don't have to be. Like, you don't have to listen to a structure. You don't have to follow anything, because it doesn't matter. You know, people are writing, people who have studied playwriting and people who haven't, and it's all valid and all incredibly valuable. And if the formatting and the structure is what's preventing you, like, ignore it. Choose to ignore it and worry about it later, or choose not to worry about it at all. Like, there's so many different formats, and they're all fun, but none of them have to stop you from doing the work. Because it's really exciting, and oftentimes it's like, it's this like, people are like, oh, you have to write this way. Like, you're told by academia that you have to do something a certain way. And what that boils down to is like, someone is preventing you from creating work and from doing things and making that first like pencil to paper kind of action. And that shouldn't be ever something that you feel that you're not allowed to do. So like, especially at Fringe, feel free to do anything, and feel free to like ask your friends for that guidance, but there's no need, I don't know if you guys want to chime in, there's no need to this professional training thing, because so many people who start their journeys in theater don't. Like, I don't think I ever took a playwriting class in college. I was just like a scenic designer and did some directing, and I loved playwriting, and I said, I don't care.
Yeah, I feel the same way with the formatting of like, but also I've written multiple plays at this point. I still don't know what I'm doing, especially when it comes to like how it should be or whatever. But also, if that's something that's an obstacle, like just like you said, pen to paper, like just grab a notepad and just like start writing the outline, or start writing the dialogue, or start writing the characters, or grab your phone if you're more comfortable speaking, and just like open up a text to voice to text kind of thing and just talk into it. And you'll be surprised, I'm sure you'll be like, oh, I just talked for 20 minutes and that's 3 scenes in my play. Sure, I have to get in there and edit it and make it make sense, but like whatever gets you over the obstacles to just get started, and starting is the hardest part.
Also, like, find your favorite things, like your favorite movies or TV shows or a favorite play that you've seen. Find like the script online and just read through it, and like that's so valuable to just watch a movie and then have the script right there, and you're kind of seeing how it went from the page to the screen. That can teach you so much that you don't have to go to school for anything. You know, there's so many different avenues to create what you want to do.
Do you have any more questions in the space? Yeah, please.
I have kind of like a similar question, because I have like a variety show with a lot of different comedians that I'm kind of loosely writing for, but a lot of them have their own different like strengths or their own different bits that they're, you know, running in their own. But I guess, do you ever like consider like what your performer strengths are when you're writing? So not necessarily writing the audience, but like writing more for the performers?
Yeah, I would say yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, especially if you know somebody has a bunch of like tricks in their bag. Yeah, I'm like, oh, she starts fire juggling at this part. No fire, no open flames. For
Yeah,
today.
most venues
Yeah.
will say no to that. I'll add to this because and Will was in it, we just did a Fringe fundraiser where we had all these talented, amazing, incredible people, and I was tasked with like, how do you make this into an evening with a loose storyline? And the loose storyline was there was like a Fringe funeral, and we had people like friends and family coming to speak at this funeral for our previous mascots. And we were, Ellen and Lois and I were like assembling a cast, and before we reached out to them, and then they kind of had this wish list, and I was like, okay, great, let me try to make this structure around this. Let's see what everyone's strengths were, and with Will, who ended up playing like 7 different things because he was game, thank God, thank you. But it was like, okay, we know some of Will's strengths and what Will enjoys. Here are things that we can offer to those people that we want to ask. And so we had a Zoom meeting, and I was like, hey, Will, like here are 5 different ideas, and feel free to take all of them, none of them, or like let me hear what you think about these things. And when you start having that communication with your performer, even in the preliminary stages of writing, it opens it up so much more, because it opens it up to essentially collaboration. Like I'm not just feeding off of my own brain, I'm feeding off of what Will's saying and how we can accomplish that. So like if you want to write something for them, or they have something that's pre-existing, just like ask them. I think that's super helpful. Or tell them like, here are 7 things, let's do them all.
And Roddy knew I did a really good Columbo impersonation, so he was like, you're gonna be our detective.
Exactly. Yeah, are there any other additional questions in this space? Well, brilliant. I don't have my phone on me, so I don't know what time it is. 11:54. 11:50. Oh, yes!
There's a clock in the back.
I've never been in this theater. I've never been in this theater for my life. Not that I do events in this theater all the time. I'm celebrating because I've never had a panel go to the minute, so this is phenomenal for me. But yeah, I'm wrapped. I'm good. Again, that's the thing I wanted to ask. Final thing is, what do you guys have going on right now? Is there anything you'd like to plug, or anything you'd like to say, like, hey, I'm doing this thing right now? And it might be like, no, I don't have anything. Or it's like, I actually want to shout out this other org, or whatever, you know? Rashawn, I'll start with you, and then we'll just kind of go down the line. If there's anything you want to shout out.
Not at the moment, just writing. Coming down from this past year's festival. Just really grateful for that experience and getting to meet awesome new people and contemplating 2026 maybe Fringe Festival. I don't know, but yeah.
Well,
Yeah, I'm doing a show next week called Welcome to Hell. That a couple of Fringe people.
almost exclusively for
Yeah, Mark Vigent, who is a Fringe guy. He's put together a show where he's Satan, who's basically taken a clown class and now is doing a clown show.
That's
So yeah, there's a bunch of us that are playing like his demon minions. I have no idea what the show's gonna be, but that's exciting. And that's on the 18th. And then, yeah, I'm planning on bringing my show back, Absolute Legends, and possibly taking that around some Fringes next year. Maybe doing a part 2 with new legends. Yeah. Just follow me on social media.
What's the handle?
At Will McFadden.
Wow, Rashawn, do you have a social media on it?
Yes, it's at the Simba tattoo. I need to change. I can't trademark that, so I'm gonna change it right now.
It's memorable. That's what it is. You know, you're good. Mandy?
I'll just plug your show. I'm going to hell, so if anyone wants to go. No, I've been occupied kicking people, but I have a lot of things in the works. I have a new show I'm working on. All Cats Go to Hell has been a finalist in many writing circuits right now, so I'm kind of just waiting around to see what happens with it. And then I'm planning on taking my show from the previous year, Dinosaurs, to Edinburgh in the next year. Hopefully, I gotta look into it. But and then my name is Mandy Rubeli, and that's the social media handle.
Absolutely. You can follow Fringe at Hollywood Fringe, and that's been our ensemble panel. We can give our panelists a round of applause. For those on YouTube, bye.